Wilson with the BMXPERTS YouTube channel, podcast, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even sure what they're called these days. But I hope you enjoyed the previous conversation. I don't consider it an interview. I consider it a conversation with Brian Gass. And thanks for sticking around back with us. We got distinguished Danny Peña on the horn, and Danny's ready to spill all of his experience and all of his good wisdom on us. Danny, I appreciate you coming on, bud.
Hey, no problem. I'm don't wait to disappoint you. I hate to follow Brian Gass because
yeah, but you know Pilon Karavich, dude.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I'm no pro, man. So that's okay. I love all those things anyway.
So are you guys friends, or was that just like a random picture taken at a race somewhere?
Oh, that was at this race actually right here, the NorCal National I went to, and I saw him, man. Like I was filming the race for my channel, and I heard the announcer go, "That's Pete Lonkarovich," and I'm like, "Oh shit, that's Pete." You know us. We geek out when we see these guys. So I was like, "Whoa, I gotta find him." So I stopped recording the races, and I just rode my bike around, and I saw him and Terry Tennant talking. And I go, "Oh, that's best case scenario. I can talk to both of them." So I went and talked to him, and one thing I like about the older guys is they're very receptive, because it's us, hey, we're your fans, we're what made you, They always stop and talk to you, it's always the case. I talked about this in one of my magazine reviews. I met Christian Besserine one time, and it was in Reno. It was at the Silver Dollar Nationals. And I'm like 40 years old at the time. He's in his 20s or whatever. And I go, "Hey, Christian." He turned around. I go, "Hey, man, can you sign my magazine?" And he looked at me nuts. He was like, I think he was expecting a little kid, but he signed it. I'm like, "I don't care, man. I'm just a fan of the sport." And he goes, "Okay." And he signed it, man. I was like, "Oh, whatever."
Dude, what the funny part about it is I have approached both those guys to be on the to talk to them. And Pete Lonkarovich, I don't know what happened to his podcast. He hasn't posted nothing in a long time. But what would you think if? Okay, so this is what I did. I sent him a text or a direct message saying, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you. I know you got your YouTube channel." And I did this whole sales pitch with him, and he responds with a thumbs up. Now, I didn't know if that's a thumbs up to I want to be on your podcast, or if that was a thumbs up saying, "Yeah, okay, whatever, I'll think about it." But Pete sent me a thumbs up, and I never heard nothing back, and I was afraid to text him again saying, "What does that mean that you were down, or does that mean you were just going to think about it?" I didn't even know.
I would say you better hit him with the specifics. How about this time, this day? Just give him and he'll probably yeah.
And then I did the same thing to Terry Tennant, and he never responded back to me. So who knows?
To me on Facebook, because after I posted that photo of us at the race, and he goes, "Yeah, man, I'd love to talk with you one day. Maybe we could sit down." And I just haven't reached out because I haven't reached that platform yet, like you are, where you're doing the interviews. I haven't really reached that skill level yet, where I feel like comfortable enough to do it. But I think I would do it. I can talk my way out of anything, I suppose. I just have to like prepare myself. Like, what do I want to ask you? Because I think I'm a big fan of the podcast. I like your stuff. Obviously, I watch it all the time. And then I like Lane 8 podcast. That's a great one. I listen to that one all the time. And of course, the Dirty Knobs guys. And I even like that. I don't know if you ever listened to Rail the Berm before they went under.
I have listened to it, yes.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite ones. And one of the things I kind of thought to myself is I ever get to that point where I'm going to interview somebody, I want to try to ask questions no one else is asking, like, how do you feel?
You got it, man. You got it.
What are you thinking about when you're driving to the race? How do you keep motivated? All these things that I think a lot of other riders want to know, is how do you motivate yourself? How do you overcome it? Because I know I've been on the gate even in my younger years, and I've literally thought myself out of a race. I feel weak. I'm tired. And I thought that mentally tough thing, that's something that has to be taught. And I know that Greg Hill talks a lot about that, being mentally strong, because it's not all about the physicality, being a great athlete. You have to be, I think it definitely is all mental with BMX, and I played a lot of baseball before I raced BMX, and you got like 8 other guys to catch you if you fall. But BMX race, it's just you. It's up to you whether you're going to win or lose.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the type of thing I want to get into with these guys. It's like, how do you overcome it? What do you think about when you're training? What do you focus on most? Most guys are going to say sprints and starts, and I get that. But beyond that, how do you overcome being intimidated at a race, or are you ever intimidated when you go to a race and things like that? Because I had heard something really interesting about Terry Tennant, that some races he wouldn't even practice. He wouldn't take gate practice. He'd go
Huh.
and win. And I read something, I can't remember where, and they said, he said, I don't need to practice. I've been on this track before. I'm like, holy crap.
Wow. That's cool.
Interesting things like that. I want to dig into stuff like that.
I hear you, man. So I think we've already talked about you grew up in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was your heyday? When'd you graduate high school?
I finished high school in '88. So I was 18 at the time, and I was introduced to BMX in, I'd say, about 1980 was the first time I ever saw a BMX magazine. And I think that was the start for it. My cousins were racing, and I was, like I said, just playing little league, nothing to do with racing. And I looked at that magazine, and I remember opening it up, and it was just like, I don't know, I can't describe it. It's like the first time you walk onto a professional baseball field or see a professional event, and you're just like, wow, like, you get that sensation. And I was just hooked. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I want to know more. And I went to my first race. I want to say I was probably about 11. So around 1981, I was watching my cousin race, and he had a tricked out mongoose. It's like that blue one, all the blue anodized parts on it. It was the first time I ever felt the bike be really light. I picked up his bike, and I'm like, holy crap, and I just wanted to do it. And I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't start racing until I think it was 12 years old. It was 1982, and I was horrible at it, man. I sucked. I didn't win my first. It took me a year to win my first trophy.
Wow.
1 year. Yeah. But I didn't quit. I just kept going back. I'm like, I remember my dad going, okay, have you had enough? And I'm like, no, I know I could do it. I had to get over the fear of falling, I think is what it was when I first started. I remember coming out of the gate and just letting everybody get ahead of me and then chasing them. That was kind of my stupid strategy to kind of prevent from falling. You know what I mean? And
I hear
then,
you, man.
but I'll tell you when it turned for me, it was during the summer. I finished seventh grade, or yeah, I think it was seventh or eighth grade, and everybody was riding. BMX was booming. It was like 1983 at this point, right? So BMX is booming. And I was going to this local place where everybody was riding. It was called Treeview. It was in Hayward, California. It was behind Treeview Elementary School. Lots of kids were riding there. Lots of kids.
All on Patterson's.
And I would just practice with them every day. And they were racers, and I was chasing them around. And that's when everything changed.
Were they all on Patterson's?
Oh yeah, lots of Pattersons, lots of bosses, as far as you can see.
Because he's from Hayward, right? They're from Hayward.
Yeah. There's always a Patterson in there, man. Always. And after that summer, though, of chasing these guys around, I went to the track a few months later, and I was competitive because the fear was gone now. I'd been riding like all summer long, and then I think got my first trophy. It was on a Friday night, second place. I still have it. I should have brought it for this for this interview.
I wish I still had my trophies, man.
Yeah,
Crazy. So what was your first race bike?
Oh, my first race bike was a borrowed mongoose. It was my cousin's mongoose, and it had a coaster brake on it with tough wheel ones on it.
Okay.
And he built the bike up based with all his old parts, because he went from riding a mongoose to riding a Patterson. So he built up the mongoose with all his old parts, and he said, you could race my bike to get started. And I went and I raced it a few times, got my butt kicked, but I still wanted to do it. Like I knew I could do it. And so I remember telling my parents, I go, I think I'm ready for my own race bike. And they took me to this bike shop in San Lorenzo, California. And I remember my budget was $200. My dad's like, can't go over $200. And back then, like, all the best bikes were like $500. And so I was like, well, I'll take this bike. And it was a Taiwan bike. It was by a company called Sakaya. I'll never forget it. It was like mild steel, no chromoly, but it looked like a BMX bike. It weighed a ton, and I raced that thing and until I started winning on it, and then eventually broke the frame. And then my dad let me, at that point, upgrade, He goes, go ahead and get a new frame. I bought a Skyway TA, kind of like the one back here. And we just, from there, man, the parts just kept changing and changing and changing and upgrading over time. And you know, the rest of the story's about the
Yeah,
same.
yeah, I know. I thought
Yeah.
for sure you were going to say you bought an MT. I thought for sure you were going to say MT.
You know, I was impatient. I wanted a bike that day, you know, and I just sort of taken my time. And you know what I noticed is over the course of me doing all these magazine reviews, there was a lot of great entry level bikes, a lot of them that were around $200. Redline had them, Mongoose had them. You know, they were there. You know, I just MT, like you mentioned, there was definitely great entry level bikes, but I grabbed the first thing that I thought I liked and I used it until I just destroyed it. You know, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah, yeah. So so you started racing on the on I'm sorry, what was it called? The Takagi or Akagi?
was called Sakaya,
Sakaya.
SEKA. And nobody knew what that bike was. Man, you know how many times someone would go, what kind of frame is that? And I go, man, it's what's that? No. You know, and I regretted getting it, but I rode the crap. It was mine, and I rode the
Right,
crap out
right,
of
right.
it.
So what? A couple years on that thing, or you upgraded pretty quick, as quick as you could?
It lasted about a year. And then, you know, by the time I switched the frame out, most of the parts had been already changed. You know, I got rid of the
Yeah.
stem, got rid of the bars. I think my first upgrade was to put CW handlebars on it. You know, and then I took off the fluted seat post, put a GT seat post on there, and a power disc. I took off that single sprocket and put a power disc on there, and I just got hooked on upgrading the bike. You know, until I could take it as far as I could. You know, once you get to about, in my opinion, back then, once you get to about 14, 15 years old, to be competitive, you're going to have a really good bike at that point because the kids
Right.
are really at their peak in terms of their athletic ability. So I definitely needed to make sure my bike kind of matched that at the time. And
Did you run with a crew back in the day, like ride dirt lots and that type of thing, or were you like a solo rider, just you?
luckily, I had my cousins that were racing, so they were kind of my core crew. And then one of my really good friends, he never raced, but he always went riding with us. And there was always plenty of kids to ride with. I think one of the coolest things we used to do is there was a hamburger stand. It was called Howie's Hamburgers. And what we would do is we would make this makeshift BMX track. We would race behind the hamburger stand, and then we would go in front of like this laundromat. And there was these speed bumps that were close together, and we'd use those as doubles. And
Doubles.
we would do that for hours, just pretending to do races. And I remember there was so many kids that were wanted to play with us basically because we were playing, you know. I'm like, you're Moto 1, you're Moto 2, we're taking one. I used to, you know,
You're lane
that,
8.
that
That's
was
funny,
pretty
man.
cool.
So you were like the Scott Breithaupt of Hayward.
Right. Yeah, there wasn't a
That's
lot of,
cool, man. That's cool. So
there
tell
was
me a little bit. So what was your,
Go
you know,
ahead.
back when I with our crew, we were, we went to the park, we built jumps and stuff like that. There was always a hot shot that was the best one or that type of thing. But where'd you fit into the picture? Were you like a jumper? Were you a racer? Did you freestyler? What was it? Ever was a jack of all trades, or did you specialize in one particular thing?
I definitely fell in the category of racer because I was one of the few that actually raced. Although there was a lot of kids on BMX bikes, there were very few of us that actually went and raced. And you know, I saw myself evolve over time at the local place where we would ride. I would get there and be afraid to ride when the older kids were riding, to the point where I became the older kid and everybody stopped riding when I was riding. So I kind of saw that evolve over time, where I could get some air, I could jump the doubles, throw some style and all that good stuff. And I was like, damn, I remember when I would be the kid watching, you know? And then I got to the point where I was in high school and then they would watch me ride. And I thought that was really cool. But, you know, one of the things I was going to say is that I tried to always be approachable with kids because I noticed as I was growing up racing, there was a lot of arrogance involved with riders that became very good very quickly. You know, you go to a track and you're new, and it's easy to get intimidated. You know, when you get there, you don't have the greatest equipment, and everybody looks so fast and so shiny, so shiny and flashy. And a lot of those kids, they were hard to approach. You know, they'd look at you like you were lesser of a person. when you were starting to come through the ranks. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to be like that, with kids when they come up to talk to me. And, I was 16, 17 years old. And, one of the bigger kids, well, I've never been big, but one of the older kids racing, I tried to be cool to them all the time, like keep trying, you're getting better. I saw you race last week, try
Right.
to be cool like that. I think that goes a long way, with a lot of kids. I remember specifically, I was like 20 years old, and this kid came up to me and he was looking at my bike, and I had a Haro RS1. It was all tricked out, and I was wearing all my Haro gear, and he was looking at me. He goes, "Oh man, your bike's cool. I like your helmet." He's like, "My helmet sucks." And I remember I knocked on the top of his head. I go, "Did that hurt?" He goes, "No." I'm like, "The helmet's cool." Just little things like that, because I still see it kind of, when I go to races. And I was at Roseville one day, and now I'm in my 40s, Roseville, California. I went on a Friday night, and I'm waiting around. It's summer, it's super hot, and I'm sitting in the bleachers, and this kid's like 15 years old. You can tell he's fast. And I looked at him, I go, "Hey, how's it going?" And he just looked at me and he just gave me the head nod, and I go, "Man, does it ever cool down over here?" He goes, "Man, I don't know." And he just rode off. And I'm thinking, "Hey, it's still there.
It's still there.
It still exists." I go, "Man, I'm a grown man. You're gonna be asking me
You're
for
an adult. You're adult, and a kid's giving you attitude.
Yeah. I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, things never change. I mean, a lot of things change, obviously, technology wise and all that. But I noticed it's the same thing at the tracks. And that's what I was mentioning in one of my videos too, is like the tracks have evolved, the equipment has evolved, but the feeling of racing, it's 100% the same. The nervousness, the legs burning, your heart, you can feel yourself fading. You can feel when you're really strong. It feels exactly the same to me. I'll just put it to you that way. Although
The
the
tracks are
riding,
too long now.
say again,
The tracks are too long now
they're very
for
long.
us.
And yeah, they're
For
very
me, at
long.
least.
That pumping, that takes a lot out of you. Like a lot of people go, "Oh, you don't have to pedal anymore." I go, "Man, try pumping through a rhythm section. That's harder than pedaling. I mean, you feel it everywhere. To get your bike moving with just momentum, I have a lot of respect for what these kids can do now. I'm actually blown away by how far have advanced in what we used to do as kids. Like especially if you watch stuff on TV, the freestyle stuff. I I couldn't have imagined the stuff that these guys are doing now with all
My
these variants.
son, my son, I went out riding with my son back when I was doing street with my son, my oldest son, and
Hmm.
there was a 15-foot ledge at the skate park, and at my peak, I would even drop off it. And he goes, watch this, Dad, and he goes up and does a truck driver bar spin 180 off of this thing, and I'm all, oh my god, dude, how
Right.
and they're running inch 1.95 tires, and we were on two like 1.75s, and they're
Yeah.
used to ride our balloons for Christ's sake. I was like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
definitely.
the kids now are nuts, dude.
Oh, absolutely. They're at a whole other level. I watched. I was commenting on one because I review races too, and part of my channel, I like to
Yeah,
watch races and talk about the races and give my input. And I was watching Ricky Carter. He's a local over here at our track in Manteca, California, and I watched him race as a little boy. You know, and now he's on the collegiate team. He's just super fast. And I was commenting on some of his stuff. I go, "Man, look how much this guy's improved over the course of time. He's like pretty much a pro now, even though he's still amateur status. But he's riding at a pro level." And I just thought that was just super impressive. I go,
is
"Wow,
is Manteca still open?
oh yeah, it's still open. Yeah, they still run on Sundays." And I've been
Uh,
lazy.
my
I need to get out there.
my
What's that?
cousin lives in Manteca. My aunt lives in Atwater, and I was up visiting my aunt probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I guess Manteca had just opened, if my memory serves me correctly. And we went
Mhm.
to the Manteca track, and my kids raced, and I was gonna race, but I didn't do race. But anyways, I've been to the Manteca track. It
Oh,
was it
nice.
wasn't it was pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's over the course of time. They've done soil tack, and now we have the paved turns. and the paved starting hill. So it's by today's standards, I think it's pretty good. You know, I know there's a lot of debate with, should there be paved turns and so forth and so on. And I really don't know how I feel about that. I see a good and bad in both. I can see why it's there. I mean, because obviously it's going to wear and tear better than any dirt berm would, and there's traction on those things, and there's speed on those things. But I'm afraid to fall on it. I'd rather fall on dirt.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but
Yeah.
as far as yesterday's tracks versus today's tracks, it's apples and oranges. It's really hard to compare the two because they're just two different beasts. It's things evolve over time. All sports evolve over time. Unfortunately, with our sport, there's more that can evolve. Because I mean, think about baseball, football, basketball. You're going to play on the same court, same field. It's not going to change. But with BMX, it changes over the course of time with the way we're looking at the way the tracks look. I think in my last magazine review too, I was looking at the '85 World Championships, and I'm looking underneath Harry Larry's got a great shot in there. He's kind of crossed up like this, and I'm commenting on the track underneath him. I mean, look at it. It's got ruts. It has bumps. It's going to be compromised over time. The more the riders go on it. Today's tracks, they don't really have to worry about that anymore. It's going to be smooth as glass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is it good or bad? Different. That's just the best way I could put it. If that makes sense.
That's too diplomatic, dude. You know what you like.
I know.
So
if I had my choice, if I had my choice, I think Greg Hill said it best because Greg commented on something I put on Facebook. He said he raced in the era of the 80s, right, and 70s, and he looks at today's tracks. Now, although he appreciates it, he said, if I had to choose, I still choose my era. And yeah, of course, I'm going to say the same thing. I would love to race in the 80 style of racing still, obviously. But
yeah.
Is that the old man in me talking?
Yeah.
Thing,
So we're back in Hayward. You're racing. Are you an expert at this yet? At this point, are you still a novice? Wait, back then when I was racing, it was beginner, novice, and expert. What was that same with you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So did you?
Expert level at about 14. I was racing expert. Our track was an AVA track at the time, and 1984, the track operators at the time, and I was racing at a track called Sonol BMX. And at the time, they were like, hey, you know what? We don't want to be under the thumb of the AVA anymore. We're going to make our own association. So they switched over to something called Eagle Bicycle Racing Association. It was EBRA. And there was like 3 or 4 tracks involved. And for a couple of years, I raced that. I was out of the AVA, had nothing to do with the AVA. And at first, it was a great idea because they had full control. They had their own national series. They called it the Super Eagle Shootouts. I still have the trophies from it, from '84 and '85. They had big double point races, but they couldn't get it to the level that they wanted it to be at. Because you figure our national series, there'd be like 50, 60 motos. So it could never get to the level of, let's say, the AVA was. So after that experiment kind of failed, they switched back to the AVA. And, then I had turned expert in EBRA. And I was bad at in EBRA, right? And then we went back to the AVA, and I got a rude awakening, man. A rude awakening. I thought I was the man, and now we're AVA, and all these other kids are coming in, and I got my eyes opened. I'm like, wow, these guys are really fast, man. It was ridiculous. I think I ran into my buddy Mike Colburn. He raced for Boss. We went to high school together. He was so much faster than me. And then the guys that were dominating, there was a guy named Donovan McCurdy. He raced for Boss and CW. That guy was incredibly fast. I remember being on the gate with him, and by the time we got to the first turn, he had me by 5 bike lengths. And I'm like, oh, wow, what is this guy made of? I literally I felt like I was at my peak, and I just couldn't keep up with him. That's when I think I reclassified down to like intermediate. At that time, I go, I can't do it. These guys are too fast. Yeah, and then I took a break. I raced until, oh man, I raced all the way to about 93. And then I hung it up for the longest time, sold all my stuff, which was the worst thing I could have ever done. I sold stuff dirt cheap, and around 98, I thought to myself, I want to race. I want to try it again. And so I went to the track and I watched. I went and watched a few times, and I go, well, there's not a lot of 28-year-olds racing, but there's a lot of 28-year-olds on cruisers. So I went and got a specialized Fat Boy cruiser, and I
saw
went,
that.
yeah, you saw that, yeah. So I took that, and I go, okay, I'm going to race cruisers, and I had never raced cruisers before, and it was an adjustment for me because the bike felt really big and I couldn't like throw it around like I could on a 20. But eventually I adjusted and I did pretty good locally on the cruisers. There was a Sonoma BMX was still running in California, and then we had a Livermore BMX was running. So I had at least two different places I could race. So I was hitting both of these tracks, and there was even a track out here in Stockton. I wasn't living here at the time, but there was at the fairgrounds, they had a track. So you had some options in 98 to go race, and I stuck on cruisers for about 2 years. And then I took another break. I go, okay, I'm done racing for a while. And I put it away. And then I didn't come back again until 2012. I started racing. And you know why I
Wow.
did it? I'll tell you exactly why I did it. It was like I got divorced and I was depressed. I had nothing to do. I'm just sitting around. When my kids weren't home, I felt like useless. I go, I got to find something to occupy my mind because I'm going crazy here. And I go, you know what? What I had is I had a GT, one of those box series bikes. I built that for fun. I had no intention to race it. And I go, I'm going to race this damn thing. And I took it to the track, and I sucked the first few times, and then it started coming back to me, and I never stopped. And other than to the point last year when my mother passed away, I took a break, but I fully intend to go back and do that. And I raced that GT for a while. It was
Dude,
a nice bike too.
I love the specialized Fat Boys, dude. I've had probably, no lie, like 10 of them. I have one right now that's sitting in my den, and I love them, dude. But they get no respect. No
Mm,
respect for the Fat Boys. Even worse are like um the like the 90, like the 2001s, 2002s. But the Fat Boy, that the cruiser that you had, oh, it's
mhm.
funny because the regular Fat Boys, you get them a dime a dozen, you get them for $100 on eBay all day long, or at least you
Yeah.
used to. But the cruisers are like they want like $1,000 for a cruiser. I'm like, dude,
Wow.
why is it so expensive now? But I don't know do you know if the cruisers were that much more rare than the 20s or something, or I have no idea why there's so much more.
Honestly, when I bought it, who was racing? Who was their factory pro? Do you remember? It was the French guy. I forgot his name. Oh gosh, I talk about him all the time. I've seen him race a
Le,
bunch of times.
Levique,
Not Tom.
Christoph,
Not Yeah, Christian Best. No, wait, was it again? Oh,
I
it's
thought it was
escape.
Levesque or Levique or something. No,
Levesque. Levesque. Yeah. So Levesque was the man, right, in the '90s, and so he had a big contract with Specialized, and they were pumping out a lot of bikes. There was tons of them, and so when I went to the bike shop, there was a lot of options. I'm like, well, I'll take the Cruiser, right? And I don't know what's driving the popularity of it now because they seem like they were all over the place at the time. But now you just never see them.
you,
That monoblock type frame, there's just not. They've disappeared. I don't know where they're at.
did yours creak?
What's that? One more time.
Did your frame creak all the time? Mine did. Mine do.
It creaked and it had this like weird hollow sound to it. When you're
Ding,
running.
ding, ding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I thought to myself, I go, I don't know if I like this or not, but I raced it for 2 years. I never had any issues with it, and but I switched back to it's more of a traditional frame later. Right behind me is like that's my GHP, so that's my normal race bike right here. And then of course I've always ride the Skyway. That seems to be the first bike I grabbed.
Okay, so is that the second? Is that the second iteration GHP? That
Oh, yeah, this is the last one. I don't know if you can see it, but this
yeah.
is yeah. I got a really super deal on that one. I think it was Greg Hill was decided he was done with BMX. for the final time. And he posted it up. I think it was on, man, I want to say it was on Facebook. And he said, listen, $150 shipped for the frames. And I was laying in bed when I saw that. It was in the middle of the night. I go, these are going to be gone in 5 minutes. And so I ordered it immediately.
If I ever talked to Greg Hill,
Uh-huh.
I was on that. I saw that post when he went out of business the second time, and I felt so dirty watching that because these guys, maybe not you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about you, but they were telling Greg on that Facebook post how great he was, how they loved his company, how they loved his bikes, but yet no one would actually buy one or pay full price for one. And I always had an issue like, dude, that's so fucked up that where you tell this guy how much you love his bikes, but I'm not going to buy it unless you give it to me at half price.
Right. Yeah, and he was basically giving them away at the time. I'm like, I have to have it. And that's one of the best frames I've ever had. So I still race it today. So I'm thinking about building other things, but I'm going to keep this only because I'm a big Greg Hill fan in general. I have to say he's probably my favorite racer of all time. So yeah, I'm going to definitely keep that. But and then I've always, as far as my retro stuff, I'm really big on the Skyway stuff, and I did a lot of racing on those. So when these came out with the modern geometry and the V brakes and all that, I'm like, oh, I got to have one of those. So I built that. What I've been eyeing now is the new Torquers. I saw that recently. Bill Allen, he's building those through Supercross, and I saw his video on YouTube the other day. I work from home, so it's kind of nice because I could have YouTube playing all day. And I saw him showing that frame off, and he was saying, hey, it's modern geometry. It's basically a modern race bike, but it's all chromoly. And I was looking at that going, man, I think I want one of those. And I went on their website. All they had was the double XLs left. I'm only 5'6", 5'7" on a good day, so I need to ride an XL. I can't go double XL. It's just too long for me.
Dude, back in the day, I was an SE fan, and then I went to JMC. I had two brands in my life, SE, right. JMC, with a reach in between. And the Torquer, I said the same thing to Brian Gass about the early JMCs. They were for little kids, man. Like if you were 10, 12 years old, Torquers fit you fine. But if you were 16, 17 years old, man, the Torquer was way too small for me. So I always liked the way the Torquer looked, but I never could even consider actually riding one. But now I would do it because if they have the double XL or that type of thing. But I always thought they were trick. Obviously, they were a quality company. But I'm curious because you look at a lot of magazines, a lot of products. What do you think is the most underrated frame from the 80s now that you look back and say, you know what? This frame and fork was nice. It never got the respect that it deserved. Does anything come to mind when you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I know Patterson is way up there. And the reason I bring up is a lot of pros that were on teams that didn't have the highest quality frames were riding Pattersons.
Yeah.
So that I think that would be kind of one of I think Patterson was kind of a NorCal thing. And I think you interviewed Vance Patterson, I believe. And I think their stuff was amazing. I really do. And to a certain extent, I think Boss is kind of underrated. Even though I look at Boss as making some of the best quality things you could ride, but they were always considered kind of a lower tier team, in my opinion, next to like Diamondback, Mongoose, all the Redline, all the big boys. When you look at a Boss, you look at the geometry and the way the bike was built, it's top notch. You know what I mean? They definitely, I think that was underrated. So I would say those are my two, and maybe it's because they're from NorCal and I'm from NorCal.
Right.
But I believe those are some of the more underrated, definitely some of the more underrated bikes.
Dude, you know what frame I always wanted but I never could get was a Navajo, dude. You remember Navajo?
Remember Navajo, yeah.
I always wanted a Navajo, dude, for some reason. And my friends would think, you're crazy. What do you want a Navajo for? Dude, I go, they're badass, man. But I never got one.
That's another
so
one.
Are you familiar with that?
You remember Bandito?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the double dropouts in the back.
Yeah.
I thought that was super trick, but they didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. The Matt Hayden era of Bandito.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
Or was it the Tinker era of Bandito? I don't even know.
Yeah, I remember him being on the team in the early stages, probably like 83 or so. I remember Tinker being in that. That dude's still riding. He's crazy, right?
Yes. Okay, so here, I'm going to bring this up now. I was on a team called Main Bikes in Alhambra, California. And if you notice, the logo is a guy doing a tabletop.
Okay.
All right. So when I was on the team in '84, there was talk, like rumor, like, is it Bobby Encinas or Tinker Juarez on the hat, on the logo? And we were always like, I don't know, it's Bobby, it's Tinker, but we never thought that he was actually on the team. We just assumed that the owner took a picture of them and put it on the jersey or whatever the case may be. Well, one of the first riders on the Main Bikes team commented that Tinker Juarez was the first rider on this bike shop team. And I was like, wait, what? I went on to Tinker's Wikipedia page. No mention of Main Bikes. And I was like, so I go, but, and the guy says, yeah, that's Tinker in the logo. I was like, yeah. So I messaged Tinker and he never responded back to me. But so if anybody's out there, if anybody knows that that's Tinker, if that's Tinker Juarez on the Main Bikes logo, I'd love to know about it. But that's crazy about stuff you don't know, stuff you don't realize until you're an old man. What do you think you've learned going through these? Well, first off, how does one get the idea? Because you're the only one that does this, right?
Right, that I know of.
How do you get the idea to do this? What led you to this point?
It's funny because my daughter's 19, but prior to that, she was always watching YouTube, since she's in middle school. And I mean, more than anything, she's watching YouTube. And I was getting really fascinated by it. Like, who are these people, that are making these channels? And then one day I was thinking to myself, I could do that. Why not? There's 12-year-old kids that are making tons of money on it. I didn't do it for money, obviously, because it's hard to get to that level. But I just thought to myself, I want to have a successful YouTube channel. I just want to do it. But I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. I know there's a lot of car channels and those guys are super successful. So I test drove some cars, made some videos, got some views. It didn't really take off that well. And then I go, well, I work as a professional deck collector by trade, and I've been doing that for 30 years. So I thought, maybe I could create this series of videos to show people how to be successful at working in this industry. I did about 17.
You probably called me, dude.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Don't say my number, bro.
No problem. Yeah, and that didn't take off. Those videos, I did about 17 videos, and I'd be lucky if I get 100 views. So I'm like, man, that's not really working. And I don't know, it just came to me. I went to my closet and I had a stack of some magazines that I had left because I'd sold a lot of them on eBay. And I go, what if I just kind of like went page by page and just recorded myself doing it? And I did. I sat on the end of my bed and I was just sitting on the bed and I just started going page by page. And if you look at like my first video compared to now, I definitely have gotten better at it. I'm able to articulate a little bit better and relate a lot of stories to it. Now I feel like every time I turn the page, I can relate to that page one way or another, and I got excited by it. And I did a bunch of those. And then I started thinking, well, what else can I do? And I like watching races on YouTube. I love watching the old stuff. And I practiced a couple times. I recorded some races and I started talking about it to see how many be able to format this style. And I found it's not as hard as I think it is. So then I started reviewing races, and those got really popular, and I thought, man, that's really cool. And I got that idea from Todd Lyons because I was watching him talk about his own
Yeah,
races.
and Shan Hatfield.
Right, and he's so great at it. They were so hilarious. And I thought I could do that. I can't do it at his level, but I can definitely do it from my perspective,
Yeah.
being more of a because I'm not a top-notch racer, never was. I've always been like a decent racer, but not like some of these guys that I review. I never was at their level, but I have a lot of knowledge of it from just the years and years and years of reading magazines. Because think about it, like we didn't have social media, there was no YouTube, there's no Google, hell, there's no internet. So you get one BMX magazine and you read it 100 times before the next one shows up. So I had all this knowledge in my head, and I remember one time my buddy of mine, we're at lunch, we were working and we were going to lunch. This kid rides by, I go, oh, check it out, Diamondback Viper. He goes, how the hell do you know that? And I go, I don't know. I guess it's just all stored up here. And that's what got me going on it. I'm like, I have a lot to share.
You know what? I would have asked the kid, how much you want for it?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I shared a story about that. I did a review on this bike after I finished building it. And there was a kid he was on a random bike. I think it was a Diamondback, and he had some graphites on it. And I looked at the bike and I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I go, damn, that kid's got graphites on that bike. She goes, what are graphites? And I go, don't worry about it. I walked over to him, right? And I go, hey man, how much you want for those graphites? He goes, oh, $40. And I go, look, man, I got like $30 on me. I'll give you $30 for them. And he said, no, I want 40. And I go, well, I don't have the extra $10 on me. He goes, there's an ATM right there. And I have a wrench in my pocket, and I was too lazy to go to the ATM. I could have got the original graphite for $40, and I just let it go.
You would have gone to hell, dude. If you would have paid $4, you would have gone to hell.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love watching the Rad BMX guy with Sean. Love watching his channel, and he's got a really good eye for his builds. And I know you do a lot of collecting, and I'm really fascinated with that. I'd love to do more reviews regarding people's builds. And I actually encourage that a lot. If someone says something to me on Facebook, hey, I really like your channel, I immediately go, hey man, send me some of your pictures of your racing and of your bikes. I'll talk about it because this is our platform, It's not my channel, it's all of your channel because everybody that watches my stuff loves BMX racing. So I'm like, share your stuff. I'll put it out there, man. I'll let everybody see it because we all want to know about it, even though, because once we're all gone, that's it. Who else is going to talk about it? So I try to get as much as I can out there.
Yeah. So you say how you got started.
Mm-hmm.
You're a car guy. Have you ever watched VinWiki?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yep. So like 3 years ago, I was watching VinWiki when I drive a truck for a living. And I was like, oh my God, this would be so bitchin' if there was guys telling BMX stories the exact same they're telling car stories on VinWiki.
Right.
So I tried to get my friends to come on and tell stories, and not one of them would do it. So I was like, oh my gosh. So if you notice, the 4 first videos that I've ever posted on my channel are total copies of VinWiki. Total copies of VinWiki. Right? Yeah. Look, the green light, I even have that because of VinWiki.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I was like, there's no one will do it. So then I was like, I was in a quandary, like, what am I going to do now? And then I didn't want to look at myself. I had to go through a phase where it's like, man, I don't want to look at myself on camera. You have to get over it real fast. And I didn't know what to do. So I wanted to meet people. I wanted to meet, like right now, like by the shirt's bugging the hell out of me. I wanted to meet like famous BMXers. Like, well, so, I'm going to start emailing guys and saying, hey, I want to talk to you. And, I send out probably, I don't know, 10 invitations a week, and I get 1 or 2, and,
It's pretty
It's
consistent with
great.
you, though.
You know, I had no training in interviewing or talking to people. I just want to talk to people like just like bullshitting around the kitchen table, drinking a beer, talking BMX. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's what. Uh, so that's what I did, man. And the first guy that responded was Mike Miranda,
Mhm.
and the first big guy was Mike Miranda. And from there on, I used him. I take his video and send it to prospective interviewees, saying, "Well, here
Yeah.
I talked to Mike Miranda. You can talk to me. It's safe." And but anyways, dude, it was it's challenging to say the least, man. So have you learned anything from rereading all these magazines that you forgot about?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. As I continue to go through these things, I kind of forgot what teams people were racing for and what teams they switched to, and I had the most recently, to give you an example, I forgot that Pete Lonkarovich was on CW and jumped to Haro at the Grammys, and I think CW was suing him for that because he was still within that contract. And I go, wow, I forgot all about that because I remember the
I did a
back.
video on it.
You got a video on that, yeah. So I was like, I forgot all about that, and that was just little things like that. And one of the things that is an eye opener for me is, like I said, is the evolution of the products, and that as I'm reviewing all this stuff, and I look at the moderns like Cool Magazine, I go, wow, things have changed. But what I think I've noticed a lot is I could see a lot of trending, a lot of trends that were happening in these magazines from, when we were all running checkered everything, checkered pads, checkered shoes. That went away. Then it was like all these neon colors. I saw them coming through, and then you see a lot of pastel colors coming through, and it's just I could see the trends that I didn't realize I was living through these trends. But yeah, it's BMX very trendy. That's the
Yeah,
best way I could put it. Yeah.
most beautiful frame ever made. What's Danny Peña's opinion?
Oh, PK Ripper. PK, I love my
That's number
favorite.
two. That's number two. But yeah,
That's number two for you.
for
Yeah.
me, it's number two.
That's number two. Yeah, I think PK Ripper by far is one of the most beautiful bikes I've ever seen. I raced one I think I built one up in '89, and I raced that thing until '93. I loved it. I still want to build one. I'm
Yeah,
thinking about
yeah, yeah.
get my hands on one, and I'd like to build a modern version one, and maybe get that. I'd like to get the maybe a baby blue one if I get my hands on one. The only I can't find an XL anywhere. I keep finding I think it's 20.5 on the top tube. I go, that's a little short. So I'm looking around to see if I could find something like that. I'd love to get something built on that. Yeah, that's definitely. What's your number one, by the way?
It's a tie between Daryl Young and Andy Patterson, JMC's.
That Black Shadow frame, that JMC frame, that's definitely a number two for me. I thought those bikes were awesome. Yeah,
Now, did in your area were you under the impression that they cracked all the time? Did JMC have that reputation?
Well, it's hard to say because there wasn't a lot of JMC fanatics to crack. I would just see them every once in a while. So I can't really answer that. But I remember Race Incorporated. Well, I know that's back now on the big bikes. I remember people breaking those. If I have to think back far enough, I remember people saying, "Oh, I cracked that. I cracked that." That's the one bike I think that was 10 to break.
See, all of my friends, when I got my Daryl Young, all of my buddies were saying, "You're gonna break it. You're gonna break it." And I go, if you know how to ride, you're not gonna break it, right? And I never had any problem with either frame. Um, I never cracked anything actually. Now that I think about it, but
I've only
the
broken
the
that
the,
cheap
the
bike.
F what's that?
The only frame I ever broke was that cheap Taiwan bike I told you about. That's the only one I
Yeah.
ever broke. I broke it right here. That's the only frame I ever broke. Other
Yep.
than that, I was solid. I raced. I rode the Skyway for a long time. I did the Haro RS1. I did PK Ripper. I raced the Diamondback Turbo for a while. I had a CW. I raced that. I know I'm going to forget some bikes, but I didn't break any of them. I mean, at the worst case scenario, I would bend rims. That's about it. And I remember I broke a stem off right in the middle. I was in Merced, and I was at a double point race. My parents drove me all the way to Merced, which was from the Bay Area. That's like a 2-hour drive, and I was in practice. And I remember they had one big set of doubles at right before the finish line. And I remember I was trying to roll through them. And my dad, he said, "Listen, son, you're gonna have to jump that because you're gonna get passed all day." And I go, "All right." I just had to work up the nerve to jump it, you know. And I jumped it, cleared it, jumped it, cleared it. Did it about 3 or 4 times, and then I approached it too slow, and I hit the second jump with the front wheel, and it snapped the stem right off. And that was that was the end of the race day. Nobody had an extra stem. I had to go all the way back home, so I didn't even get a chance to race that day. But that was probably the biggest thing I ever broke. Was at that race.
So I'll share with you my biggest problem. It was 85 or 84 War of the Stars in Azusa.
Yeah.
And I've told the story many times, but I'll tell it again, damn it. I was the only guy that I never upgraded 3-piece cranks.
Okay.
I rode Takagi 180s. I rode Sunshine, ball bearing hubs, Tangy headset, ball bearings. Never had seal bearing anything, but I was on the gate, 17 over X main, and I get the best start of my life. I whole shot out of the gate. I looked to my left, I looked to my right, there's no one there. My second crank, I snapped my cranks in half. I went over the bars, and I snapped my Takagi 180s out of the gate at the War of the Stars when I whole shot it, and that was my biggest disappointment the whole time I ever raced, man. But I never broke a frame, but I broke a pair of cranks.
That probably sent you over the bars immediately, right?
Yeah. I was fucked up for weeks. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, I've had a chain break, and
that's just as bad, dude.
Yeah. So when that happens, you go from all to nothing all of a sudden, and you're just going to go over. There's definitely no way to avoid it. That was, I was going to tell you this one story. When I did come back to racing in 2012, one of the first things I noticed that was changed was the random gate start, where it doesn't just go riders ready to watch the lights and bam, right? And I got on the gate. First couple times I just kind of rolled through the gate, and then I found my balance point, and I go, okay, I'm going to snap this one. I'm ready. And as soon as it said riders ready, random start, watch the gate or whatever, I took off. And I just slammed into the gate, flipped over, crashed, and then at that point had that sciatic nerve action going on. And for like a week, I couldn't even walk straight, And I go, oh my God, that's when you start feeling your age. I'm like, I got hurt in practice, But that was the first thing that I noticed in terms of how different things were. And there was no 3-moto transfer. It was like 2 motos in and out. That's it. So I was like, okay, that's different. But then everything else started feeling relatively familiar to me after that. And then now it's just going to race. It's just the same thing now.
What kind of car was that in that picture with your bike on top? What was that?
Oh, that was a Toyota Corolla FX16 GTS. Long name, but that was my high school car. I got that my senior year in high school. It had a 16 valve. It was non-turbo, but it was a quick little car, a quick little hatchback. And
go
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when I envisioned that car, when I got it, I visualized the bike sitting on the roof of it. And so I had to go find a roof rack, man, and I found it. And I put that thing on there and I set my bike on top of it. I'm like, oh, goal achieved.
When I see that picture, I think of Expose bumping in the background, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a straight 80s car, man. Yeah. And I went on Facebook Marketplace one time just to see if I could find one. And yeah, they go for a lot of money now, because it's so rare.
Crazy,
The only thing I have old car wise is I have my mom's car. I have a 1985 Fiero GT sitting in my garage. Yeah, we're the only owners of the car, and my sister had it for a while. I have it, and I just don't have the heart to sell it. And it's just, it'll start, it'll drive, but it's really hard to drive. There's no power steering in the car.
The Fiero and the MR2.
Yeah, those were really big then. Yeah, and I still have it, but like I said, that's just sitting in the garage. I
Nice,
did a
dude.
video on that. Matter of fact, it's on my YouTube channel somewhere. It's like in the early stages of me trying to figure out this YouTube thing. And then my overall goal, though, with YouTube is my first goal is to get to the 1,000. I think that's everybody's first goal, and I know I can do it because every week I feel like I pick up a couple more subscribers. I get the updates from YouTube weekly, my recap, and tell you got 10 more, you got 11 more, and I go, okay, I'm getting there. It's really just being diligent and continue to grind and continue to put your content out there as consistent as you can. I see you coming out like all the time. I'm like, man, he's killing me. He's coming up, you got content coming up all the time, and I know our channels are like about the same size.
Exactly, man.
So
So
throwing up content.
I'm ultra paranoid about getting copyrighted or getting whatever, even though I'm never going to be monetized, right? But I'm always like you take race photos footage that's not yours, right? You just grab it off the internet, right? No one's ever came at you and said, "Hey, don't do that."
No, not yet. Not yet.
See,
The only thing I got flagged on was I was kind of mad about it because I spent to do a race video. It takes me about 3 hours from start to finish to do a 30-minute video because it's a lot of recording, editing. Oh, I messed that one up. Let me do it again. That kind of thing. Finding the pictures that I want to tie to my intro. It's a lot to put together that video. Every time I sit down, I'm going to do one this week. So every time I sit down to do a race edit, I go, man, this is going to take me about 3 hours. So I try to start no later than 8 o'clock at night. So I'm not doing it too late at night, and but the only thing that's gotten flagged, getting back to the story, is I decided I'm going to cover the finals on every Olympics. So 2008, 2012, so forth. I looked at all of those races and I just did the finals for the men's and women. And I finished the whole video. It was all done. I was so proud of it. I'm like, this video is one of my best videos. And I put it up there and it got flagged. Like, by the time I woke up in the morning, it had already been flagged. It only got watched like 12 times. And YouTube sent me an email and said, yeah, you can't do any Olympic footage on your channel. And they said, we're not going to ding you. We're not going to ding you, but you can't do that. And I was like, oh man. So I literally lost all the footage.
Hey Danny, real quick. My phone is acting up and it's on red, but the lightning bolt's on. If this thing cuts off, that's reason why, dude.
No worries.
So I just want to let you know, let our audience know that my phone it's plugged into the wall, but it's still red. So anyway, I just want to let you know that it's not on purpose. But I got copyrighted on myself. I posted my own stuff, my own video, and they copyrighted me.
Was it from the music or what was it?
No, there's no music. It was just me. And then I got copyrighted on myself, man. It was oh, you know what? If you want to use the music, okay. So if I took your sizzle reel with the rat, and I did it on Facebook, right? And if I transposed that, if I screenshotted it, screen recorded it, I put it on YouTube, it will get flagged for copyright. But if I did it with no sound and put it on YouTube and then put that same song on, it's fine.
Really?
Yeah, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. So when I transpose them, I have to screen record it in mute, and then I take it over, and then I drop the music back on YouTube, and they don't seem to care about that. But
the music is the hard part. I have my buddy Fred Berry. He's like my best friend. He makes the music for me. He's like just the small background beats that I put on my channel. He makes those because I tried to use some music that on the editor program that I use. I tried to use some of theirs and it got flagged. So I'm like, okay, I can't use theirs. So he does make some beats for me, and every once in a while I have to tell him, you got to make me something else. I got the same 4 songs. I need to put something together for me. Yeah.
When I screen recorded the Mike Devitt interview on Joe Kid from Joe Kid on Stingray with the ET bike and with the bus, I
Yeah.
was so petrified that I was gonna get like someone's gonna email me saying, "Dude, you can't use that, man. You can't use that." I don't know who owns the rights to it, but I was like, in the description, I put, "This is for entertainment purposes only. If you want to watch the whole video, I suggest that you find out who buy the video somewhere else."
Yeah.
I still might get busted for it, but I felt so guilty and about posting that stuff because I get really scared sometimes. But I would
Yeah.
love to do what you do with the race stuff
I have
and
some
talk about races, but I don't know.
Yeah, there was
Great
the
stuff.
interview with Bob Harrow. I forgot the YouTube channel. I borrowed some of their footage, and he was talking about that ET footage because Bob Harrow is one of the guys riding in
Yeah,
that sequence, and I put him in there, and I said, "Hey, this is Bob riding," and I think as long as you're narrating over the content, you're good. You just can't put it up and say it's yours. You know what I mean? I think you're okay. So because I have it on there and nothing happened. But I will tell you this: if I do talk about anybody's stuff, Dirty Knobs podcast, what is it? Rad BMX builds, Lane 8, any of these guys, I try to put their picture of their logo in my video. Like, hey, this is from Lane 8, and try to give them some love because
yeah.
I want everybody to succeed at this, and I'm definitely at the kind of the beginning stages of it. So piggybacking on the back of these guys that have already been doing it helps me tremendously. Like I think Dale Holmes, he was the one that really kind of inspired me listening to his podcast because he was the first BMX podcast I ran into. I go, man, this is a great idea. I love listening to these interviews. So I try to
Yeah,
emulate that. My ultimate goal
yeah.
too is to get to a point where I'm basically at my own sports center for BMX. I'd love to get to that level, where I'm just reviewing races and giving my feedback on that. And I'd love to partner up with a couple guys that know what they're talking about. Kind of like, if you ever watched basketball, the TNT guys, with Shaq and Barkley and all those guys, I'd love to get to that level, at a smaller scale, obviously. But when we're talking about BMX racing and talking about, hey, did you see the Spring Nationals last week? Let's talk about what happened. I'd love to get to that kind of
You're talking
level.
about you're talking about current races, not old races.
I'd like to do a combination of both. I've been introducing some of the more recent races on my channel more recently, so I can try to get to a bigger audience. I think my core is always going to be the retro and stuff like that. But I definitely would like to add some of the more recent stuff too, just to expand my audience somewhat if I can. At least that's the goal anyway.
If
We'll
someone
get there.
wanted to find your podcast, how do they find it? Or your channel, I should say. How do they find it? What's the
Yeah,
name of
you
it?
just go on YouTube. It's under Danny Peña 2673, and you'll find me. As soon as you put Danny Peña, you're going to see the picture of me racing. You know you're on the right channel. But it's Danny Peña 2673. I need to come up with my own a better name. That's the one YouTube gave me, and I just and I never bothered to change it. And I go, well, I might as well leave it now. That's where everybody's been finding me. But yeah, I try to copy some of the videos on the TikTok so I can get get a little bit of traction. Like I put the intro to my video on TikTok. I've been putting it on Instagram, just the intro portion. And then of course there's probably about 20 different Facebook groups I belong to, and I always drop a link so they can find it. And that seems to help. That helps me get some traction because
See, I don't do that. I've never done that. But I always feel weird about doing that because some of the moderators, they don't like that, right?
I haven't had any flack about it, and it seems to throw some traffic my way. So it's kind of my way of advertising my own stuff because if you just do it on YouTube alone, you have to hope that they find you.
Right.
So I try, but I am getting found. I noticed from the statistics that I do review, most of it says YouTube home, so they're finding me on their home page. So I'm like, okay, that's still number one. But I'm trying to draw more traffic so I can hit this 1,000. And once I get to 1,000, I know it's not going to be enough. I'm like, okay, well now I got to get 2,000. I
Do
already
you
know
do you,
that.
here's an issue with me. Do you ask people to subscribe to your channel?
Yeah, I put it on the end of my at the end of my channel. I always close off. hey, like and subscribe. I appreciate it, and that's it. And
Dude,
that's the only time I say it.
I used to get so pissed off because I used to do that, and
Yeah.
nobody ever subscribed, dude. I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not even gonna. There's a couple of my videos out there saying, dude, I don't care if you subscribe or not. You can kiss off, man.
Yeah.
I used to get so mad. Like, dude, why don't people subscribe? It's like, it's free, damn it. It's free. Why would you subscribe?
Hit the button.
Dude, I would take it so personally, dude. And now I don't even ask anymore. I go, you know what? If they want to subscribe, they'll subscribe. If not, then nothing I can do about it.
There's a lot of truth about that. There's not much you can do. And if you look at your analytics, I'm still at like 70% that watch that don't subscribe. So I go, wow, that's 70% are not subscribing. And I'm like, but that's with a lot of YouTubers. That's not. I don't think that we're unique.
Yeah. Everybody has the same problem.
Right.
Same concern.
Yeah, because people want, they watch it on TV and they don't think about hitting the subscribe. And I know that the higher percentage of people watching me is typically on a television rather than their phone. And I go, well, they're not going to hit subscribe on the TV. So I know that might be one of the reasons.
Yeah.
Try to remind them, just do me a favor and like and subscribe because I'm trying to hit a goal. Whether or not I hit that goal or not, it's not the end of the world. But to me, I'm a very competitive person. And that's kind of like got from BMX, right? I'm like, I could do it. I can get to 1,000. And then once I do that, it's like, what's my next goal? How do I want to expand my team? I like going to races. I've only gone to a few and filmed a few races here and there. I'm going to try to do that more throughout the summer, hit some races and go film because I'm actually more inclined to do that than racing because I love going out there and filming and I need to upgrade my equipment and, we'll get there. Everything with time,
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been a pleasure. My dinner's ready. I keep getting messages, but hey, Danny, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time. Anybody that has been unfortunate to hit the subscribe button on my channel, check out Danny Peña on YouTube. Fascinating stuff. He'll walk you through magazines like you've never. Danny will read you the copyright on the bottom of the page. Dude, you go to the table of contents, copyright, published date. I was like, oh man, this guy's thorough.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to reach out to Bob Osborne and go, man, you're gonna have to send me some magazines, dude. I'm gonna run out. I'll run out.
You're gonna have to go to Super BMX and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, definitely, man. Hey, it was a pleasure.
I appreciate it, Danny, so much, dude. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for watching, everybody, on the BMXPERTS. I don't even know if I'm a podcast or if I'm a channel. Thank you very much for watching on the BMXPERTS channel. I appreciate it. And if you don't want to subscribe, I don't give a shit. Danny, it's been a pleasure, bro. Thank you very much.
I'll see you later, man.
All right, man. Take it slow and let me know when you get to 1,000.
I will. I'll be in contact with you.
I'll race you to 1,000. We'll see who gets there first.
There you go. There's our challenge. Let's see if we can get there. We're like neck and neck. Let's see.
All right, man. Keep the rubber side down, dude. Watch the lights.
All right.
Peace out, bro.